else is doing it around here.
440.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the Township of Wainfleet regular council meeting of May 20th, 2025 to order. This time I'd ask everyone that can, please stand for the national anthem. We would like to begin this meeting by acknowledging the land on which we gather is the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe and the Haudenosaunee peoples, acknowledging the One Bowl and Spoon Treaty. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, okay. Please note that these meetings proceedings are being broadcast live, recorded, and made available through the Township website and youtube.com. Our next regular meeting of council is Tuesday, June 10th at 6:30 p.m. Discover your roots and local resources at the 55 Plus Seniors Information Fair. The Wainfleet Library, in partnership with the Wainfleet Age Friendly Committee and the Ontario Genealogical Society Niagara Peninsula Branch, invites everyone to drop in for a 55 Plus Seniors Information Fair on Thursday, June 12th from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. Join us for a relaxed and informative afternoon featuring engaging genealogy presentations, local senior service resources, tea, treats, and friendly conversation. Whether you're interested in tracing your family history or learning more about the services available to seniors in the area, this event is a great opportunity to connect, discover, and enjoy. Are there any announcements or remarks from members of council? Seeing none? Okay, we're going to move to the adoption of previous council minutes. I have a motion that the minutes of the regular meeting of council held April 29th, 2025 be adopted as circulated. Can I get a mover and a seconder? Councilor McCullen, Councilor Van Fleet. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay, we have no public meetings on the agenda this evening. We also have no delegations. We do have 3 items on the consent agenda this evening. So those items are memorandum respecting the Age-Friendly Advisory Committee membership, memorandum respecting Summer Municipal Bylaw Enforcement Officer, and FSR 002-2025 respecting Wainfleet Fire and Emergency Services 2023 and 2024 annual reports. Are there any items that council wishes to be removed from the consent agenda for discussion? Councilor Anderson, go ahead.
If we could bring forward the fire reports, please.
Okay. Go ahead, Councilor Anderson.
I'm just wondering if you're just going to present that at this point, or are you going to wait till you're called on the floor later?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, no, I believe they were placed in the consent agenda with no presentation planned.
Okay.
Any other discussion on it? Okay, seeing none. Councillor Anderson,
Yes,
All right.
Mayor.
just confirming, you just wanted to ask that question, you're just curious about the presentation?
Well, I was just wondering if there was an actual presentation, or do we have to officially bring that forward to Q&A the chief?
You would have to pull it if you wish to ask questions, yes. So since you have pulled it, if you have any questions for the chief now.
I'd like
it's
to
done.
poll, thank you.
All right. Okay. That being said, I have a motion that the following items be received and the recommendations contained therein be approved and acted upon. The memorandum respecting the Age-Friendly Advisory Committee membership and memorandum respecting Summary Municipal Bylaw Enforcement Officer. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor McClellan? Councillor Anderson? Any discussion? Seeing none, call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Okay, and that is carried. Okay, moving on to staff reports and recommendations. ASR 009-2025 respecting the 2026 municipal election, voting methods, and tabulators. Ms. Christina, can you please provide a brief overview of your report?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, through you, election planning efforts are already underway, and so staff is just seeking direction and confirmation of approved methods for the 2026 municipal and school board election. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. So I have a motion that administrative staff report, ASR 009-2025, respecting the 2026 municipal election, voting methods, and tabulators be received, and that council approve the use of vote by mail as an alternative voting method for the 2026 municipal election, and that council approve the use of vote tabulators. And that staff prepare the required bylaws to be brought forward for consideration at a subsequent council meeting. Can I have a mover and seconder? Councilor McCullough again? Councilor Anderson, thank you. Any discussion? Councilor Van Fleet, go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to, I believe, maybe Amber. Have we updated the voters list? Because I remember last, it was not good.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Van Vliet and all of council. So in the previous elections, the voter list was managed by MPAC, and that actually shifted following the 2022 election to Elections Ontario is now managing it. So going through that list in preparation for a clean voters list is already underway, and we're trying to, through our website and socials, promote people to confirm and check their voter information. We'll continue to do that right up to the election. There have been several area municipalities that have held by-elections recently, and the feedback has all been that the voters list has been excellent as compared to previous.
Okay, thank you, because last time around it wasn't fun. Thank you.
Councilor McCullough, go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Just to be clear, you still are going to have open polling stations during the day, just so the public knows that it's not just mail-in?
Through you, Councillor McClellan, or through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor and all of council. So the idea is that we don't have traditional polling stations because they have very heavy staffing requirements, but we do have an open station where members of the public can bring in their mailing kit, go behind the privacy screen, mark their ballot, and put it in the ballot box. So it very much mimics an in-person polling station without the same cost and resources necessary. That's how we've done the last 3 elections now.
Okay. Yep. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Councilor Anderson, go ahead.
Just in regards to the costing of the election, I know we've been putting money away in a reserve, and I believe the last costing, I'm not sure if we put the same balance in this year, that we will be topped up to what it cost us for the 2022 election. If someone could just clarify that, maybe the CAO.
Oh.
Mr. Hart?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So yes, we did put in the budgeted allocation for 2024, and the balance that's currently in the reserve for the election is sitting at an expected $70,000 at the end of 2025. So whether or not that'll cover the cost of the election, I believe Amber was looking into some finalization of costs, and that was outlined in the report.
Sure. Through you, Mr. Mayor. So there were some financials included in the report, and based on estimates and what we've been budgeting, we should be in good position if we're planning to run the election in the same manner that we have historically. Obviously, as with everything, some costs have gone up as compared to 2022. However, we should be in a good position with what we've been putting aside.
Any other discussion?
Oh, thank you for the answer. I was just looking at the previous costing, and I was sort of looking at our reserve number, and I wasn't sure whether we were on the dime to carry that, but I guess we are if we're at 70. Further to that, though, if I may, through you, Mayor, what happens if there's an overfunding? Does that stay in the reserve for the next 4 years?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, if there's an overfunding of the election, I would suggest that we would estimate what the next election would cost and then work towards a number. And that would, if we had funds already in the reserve, then the transfer that would be required every year would be less.
So if I may continue, Mayor, if we were over, then we would just use that as seed money and put it into the reserve?
I can't even hear what you said.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yeah, I think we're of the same understanding. Yeah, it would be an initial balance, and then we would just continue topping it up to what we would need to get to.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Gilmore, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. The cost for the mail out is $20,300. What's the additional 30% for other postage for?
Through you, Mr. Mayor.
$7,600.
That's just calculating based on our cost of postage and the increases that we've seen in Canada Post rates.
No, but.
And the mail-out kits themselves have also become more costly
okay,
since
so
the previous.
So the 20,000 is for the kits, not mailing them out, and then, okay, because kit/mail out, that was confusing. So the 20,000 is actually for the kits.
That's correct. That's a quote through DataFix, and that's an estimate at this point.
All right, well, when Canada Post is privatized, by the time the election comes, maybe it'll be cheaper.
All right, any other discussion? Seeing none, I will then call the question. All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay, moving on to ASR 10-2025, the 2024 Auditor's Report and Draft Financial Statements. Mr. Hart, could you please provide a brief overview of your report?
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. Hello, Mayor and councillors. The attached report overviews the auditor's report and the township's financial statements for the 2024 fiscal year. The auditor's report outlined an unqualified audit opinion and identified no adjusting misstatements, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Hart. So I have a motion that report ASR 10-2025 respecting the 2024 Auditor's Report to Council, communication of audit strategy and results be received, and that Council approve the 2024 draft financial statements. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Anderson, Councillor McClellan, any discussion? Yeah, go ahead.
So through the mayor to all of council, just to clarify, an unqualified audit is a clean audit for everyone watching at home. That means it's the best, cleanest audit that you can get, just for the public record.
So it's a good thing. There you go. Yeah. All right. Any discussion? Okay. Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. Okay, moving into ASR 11-2025, respecting the 2025 user fees and charges May update. Mr. Hart, once again, can you please provide a brief overview of your report?
Thank you. The attached report outlines the recommended changes to the 2025 user fees and charges for the township, which was previously approved in November of 2024. Over the last several months, there have been new initiatives and services offered by the township which required updating of the fees, and as such, we have taken this opportunity to include these new fees as well as some minor corrections and housekeeping to existing fees. Any changes from the current 2025 approved fees are marked in red. At a high level, the most significant changes are for fees for the tournaments and church groups for the arena, as well as new advertising opportunities to help offset the cost of our arena operations, some new cremation fees for our new columbarium, and our new recreational trapping fee, which was brought up at the last council meeting, and a few others. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Hart. So I have a motion that report ASR 11-2025 regarding the update to user fees and charges be received, and that council approve the recommended user fees and charges contained within the Appendix A of the report, and that the general fees and charges bylaw attached as Appendix B be approved. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Van Fleet, Councillor McClellan, any discussion? Councillor Anderson, go ahead.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. I'm just wondering, Cameron, are our fees across the board, not particularly new add-ons, or maybe we even have some takeaways, is there a annual indexing to cover, underlying sort of rising costs like staff salary, input, et cetera?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, we do inflate the costs and check some of the costs to make sure that they're in line with other municipalities as well as cost recovery. Typically, we review CPI, and historically, I believe the last 2 years that I've worked on them, we've increased them 3%. Not every single fee, only certain fees that made sense, and some of the lower fees, obviously, if you increase them by 3%, you might not get any increase, or like a quarter, like 25 cents, we didn't increase some of those, but yes, there's inflation on the fees.
Okay, thank you for that.
Go ahead. Mr. Hart, go ahead.
Thank you. I also wanted to bring up that I slightly misspoke when we were speaking about the election reserve. I was looking at their 2025 budget document, which included the transfer of council surplus, which we subsequently decided that we wouldn't transfer that. So actually the estimated balance is going to be around 50,000, which was the estimated cost, not 70,000. So I just wanted to correct myself there.
Okay. Thank you. Joan's smiling over there. All right. Any other discussion? No? All right. I will call the question. All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay, moving into fire staff reports. We're going to start with FSR 2 2025, respecting the 2023-2024 annual budget or annual reports. Can I have a mover and a second? Or do I already? Oh. All right. Morgan? Please just speak to that.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. My apologies. With this being on the consent agenda, this is a for information only report with the attachments to be published. Certainly if council's had the opportunity to review those reports, I'll take questions, but I was not prepared to present them.
All right. Okay, so I'll just start with a motion to receive for information. Can I get a mover and a seconder? Councillor Van Fleet? Councillor Gilmore? Any discussion? Councillor Anderson? I hope so.
No, it's so. Just a couple of questions. Will we be getting, as a council, because I keep a file on all the departments, will we be getting a hard copy of those reports?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I can certainly print them and place them in everybody's mailboxes.
I'm the only one asking, so anybody else wants one, I'm not speaking on their behalf.
Okay.
Secondly, I have gone through this a couple of times, as you'd well expect. Is there anything that jumps out at you as a increase in a certain area that we are or aren't prepared for? For example, the numbers year over year look fairly consistent in the sense of fire call to an actual fire structure or otherwise, motor vehicle, et cetera, et cetera. Is there anything, and I might think that I noted that medical medical assist seems to be growing, sort of in its call zone, not exponentially, but I'm just wondering if the department feels well prepped enough to sort of see a swing away from, just going to a fire versus going to all the other kinds of incidents that you attend.
Absolutely. Through the mayor to all of council. Yes, just kind of honing in on the medical responses piece with the understanding that Niagara EMS does not operate a unit dedicated to Wainfleet during the evenings. We do focus a hefty portion of our training to those types of responses, in addition to all the others that we do provide. We are a part of the tiered response agreement with Niagara EMS, and with that, we do have to follow the base minimum training that is required from base hospital and our medical director. So I have no concerns there. The level of training that we currently undertake will meet that need. Certainly any other trends, and that's why we do these reports, so we can see what the trends are and tailor the services we provide to make sure that we are meeting the community needs.
So if I might continue through you, Mayor. So, for example, if you were called on a 911 to an emergency, this just comes out of my past nursing history, you got there and the person obviously needed to be transported. There's no lag, I'm just worried, there's no lag time between EMS coming as a support that you would call for transit on ambulance?
So the way the tiered response agreement works is we do not get called before EMS. When you call 911 and someone picks up the phone and says, please fire EMS, if you have a medical emergency, you're automatically transferred to the EMS dispatch center. As they're taking in the call information, there's a whole bunch of determinants that kind of create a flow path of what resources are required. At some point, if the severity of the call out requires fire's assistance, or if EMS is greater than 8 to 12 minutes, then they will tier fire after EMS. So we don't have to call for EMS to attend. They're already on their way. We're there to assist them.
So you're saying that in off hours, the residents out here will have not our EMS stationed fellows, but they will be coming from out of port or wherever there's the closest vehicle, correct?
That's correct. And it's been that way for decades.
And so I don't want to get ahead of myself on the EMS, but is there any change in their hours of attendance here when they're in the new station part, Station 2? Are the hours changing there, or are we not aware of any changes yet?
So through the mayor to Councillor Anderson. So at this point, the chief can correct me if I'm wrong, because he deals more closely with them than I have been up to this point. They've been going through Richard in terms of kind of construction, but they have been placed there, even though the only change is that now they're parking it inside of the facility. So their hours haven't changed up to this point. I do believe that there are conversations whereby we may see increased service levels. But we have to remember, it wasn't too long ago, probably within the last 3 terms at least, whereby we didn't even have an ambulance in the daytime. So we only had a tiered response 24 hours a day in Wainfleet. So we are already experiencing increased service levels, and we're hoping to partner with EMS to try to get even greater increased service levels in Wainfleet in the near future, as soon as we can get that renovation underway.
Councillor Anderson will also speak to it. So maybe about 2 months back, we actually went through a little bit of an EMS master plan. And the master plan, they're planning on doing a hub and spoke, where this would actually be a spoke station that will have a 24-hour ambulance. That's still completely in the works. They're looking to still construct their new hub station for all of Niagara's EMS services. But the long-term goal is to have 24-hour ambulance here in Wainfleet.
So if I might continue through you, Mayor, thank you, that was good news. So if we go to an NHS hub, what you're saying is we're going to have an EMS and a transport ambulance, 24 hours?
No, that ambulance would take over that basic EMS function eventually, right? Once that station becomes an actual ambulance location, that ambulance would be the person responding instead of just our EMS supervisor vehicle that we see now.
So if I might just clarify for myself, so if we get to the point where we become an NHS hub and we go to an ambulance in-house here, we're not going to have an EMS wagon, we're going to have an ambulance that does call, and not an EMS team, correct?
Well, you'll have your assigned paramedics with that ambulance, right? And it'll, yeah, if the chief might be able to.
Through you,
speak
Mr. Mayor.
better on it.
So the way the land transport works is an ambulance, as you would call it, the actual rig that transport patients. While it would be stationed here, the way the system works is its closest vehicle responds. So if Port Colborne's ambulance is called to Fort Erie, then Wainfleet's would go to Port Colborne, which would again leave us empty, but there would at least be that resource when everything is full. That's one piece of the land transport. The second is our community paramedic, the CRU that we have. That program will continue because they're the ones that are doing the proactive. They've kind of taken the fire approach that prevention's better than response. So they're the ones that will go out into the community, do the home visits, do the pre-hospital planning. That resource will continue, but it's the land transport piece, because even if we do have an ambulance parked in that building, no one can guarantee that it'll be there. It's not dedicated to Wainfleet, it's dedicated to Niagara Region. Well, for that matter, it's a provincial resource, so it could get called into Haldimand or Hamilton if the resources are required under the provincial mutual aid system.
Thank you for that, Chief.
Right, any other discussion? Seeing none, so I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay, so moving into FSR 003, 2025, respecting the RFP for consulting services for a community risk assessment and master fire plan. Chief Alcock, can you please provide a brief overview of your report?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of the master fire plan that was presented during the budget, there's twofold to this. We have the community risk assessment, which is a legislative required to be reported to the province. That community risk assessment, to break it down, identifies all of the hazards and risks that the municipality currently faces from a fire and life safety perspective, and then it does a gap analysis that it identifies where there are service gaps between what the risks are and the services we provide. That's what the purpose of the CRA is for. The master fire plan then takes a look at those gaps and identifies a plan, a 10 to 15 year plan on how to address those gaps. Our last master fire plan was done in 2012 with an operational review that followed up in 2015. So with those now being over a decade old, it's time to renew those plans and use the community risk assessment to guide the data-driven decision-making for the next 10 years.
All right, thank you, Chief. So I have a motion that the Fire Staff Report FSR 3/2025, respecting the request for proposal for consulting services for a community risk assessment and fire master plan, be received, and that the council authorize the mayor and clerk to enter into an agreement with Emergency Management Group for the development of the community risk assessment and master fire plan for the Township of Wainfleet Fire and Emergency Services for $99,894, not including HST. Can I have a mover and seconder? Councilor McCullen, Councilor Van Fleet, any discussion? Councilor McCullen, go ahead.
We have one, as he said, it's a decade old or better. We've done everything that it has asked us to do or told us we should do. I trust the fire chief. We've tried, if we didn't trust him, we shouldn't have been gone, or I should have been gone, one or the other. I trust him. Why do I have to pay somebody $100,000 to tell us when really nothing in this town has changed? We haven't built 200 houses in 15 years here. Why are we spending $100,000? I trust the man. He should be able to tell us what we need and go. If the next council doesn't trust him, let them spend $100,000 of taxpayers' money as a waste of money, because that's what it is. So I really don't think we should be wasting the money in doing this.
Thank you, Councilor McCullen. Any other discussion? Councilor Gilmore, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to pick up on those comments, I'd be curious to know how many hours it would take to update the plan from 10 years ago when Councilor McClellan, as I believe quite correct that there hasn't been a lot of changes. I'd like to know how many hours are involved in updating this plan, because, yeah, this number, it seems astronomical. Does every municipality in the province have to do this?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, so the community risk assessment is mandatory. We do have to complete that and report the results to the province. The master fire plan is, like I said, that plan forward to address those gaps.
So every municipality, all 440, could potentially spend this much money to satisfy the bureaucracy in Toronto, which is $44 million to consultants to update something that it's just an update from what they've already had before. And that would only be, we're one of the smallest ones. I'm sure the bigger ones are substantially more money than that. This could be costing $100 million for bureaucratic consulting. That's what I think my colleague is upset about, and I as well. So I just don't know how much time could possibly be involved in updating the plan to get us to $100,000.
Councilor McClellan, go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I would suggest that maybe we talk to our lawyer. If this is mandated, what happens if we don't do it? Correct. Right? If this is a waste of taxpayers' money, I'd like to get an opinion before we hammer down on $100,000.
CAO?
So through the mayor to Councilor McClellan and all of council, generally speaking with the province generally with the province, but basically their only tool is to withhold any funding that we receive. So we do receive funding annually from the province, and what they like to do to ensure compliance is to withhold our funding. So they would withhold our annual funding. We would likely become ineligible for certain grants, particularly in the fire field. We'd basically put an X beside our name for opportunities that could arise. And we have been successful as of recently with some larger grant funding amounts. So it would pose a risk. So it doesn't really make sense to identify the risks without making a plan to solve the risks, because there is two components to this. But at the very least, the community risk assessment is the mandated part. So I would strongly advise against not being in compliance with the mandatory legislation. And it's literally my job to advise you of that.
Councilor Gilmore, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I'm not suggesting that we don't comply with anything. I just want to know how it can be, like $100,000 is basically a person working almost the whole year to update a plan for 6,000 people. It's just, the math does not work.
Yeah.
That's all.
I agree with you, Councilor Gilmore and Councilor McClellan. It's basically just an updated form with new dates on it, right? So, yeah.
We don't have
Go ahead,
any
Councilor
new
McClellan.
industry that came in here that has higher toxic chemicals, or we haven't got, a battery plant that came here that might self-ignite. Nothing's changed, right? This shouldn't take somebody more than about, maybe on a stretch, a month's work. If somebody knows what he's doing, it shouldn't take that. I don't see where the $100,000 is. It just doesn't make any sense.
Chief Alcock, what's the mandated timeline to have this complete? Like when you said, we're a decade old, but what does the mandate say as far as like, what's our timeline here? Do we have to do this immediately or to remain in compliance, or is there some room right now so we can figure this out?
The community risk assessment was due in June of '24.
Okay, so we're a year behind already. Okay. Councilor Gilmore, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, who has the cost breakdown? Like, are we being charged $500 an hour for a consultant, or what? Like, somebody has to tell me what the math is, because I still haven't heard an answer to my concern about the fact that the math does not work.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I can certainly go back through and review the proposals, as there was cost breakdowns that were provided. I didn't bring that information here, only because the approved budget amount was $125,000. All of the bids come in well under budget, and I was not expecting this level of discussion over a project that was already approved. I'm sorry.
Councilor McClellan, go ahead.
And Chief Alcock, I'm not picking on you, and I know we pre-approved this, but when we're doing a budget, this didn't look like a lot of money when you're looking at $9 million. And when now we get into the weeds and you can see what we're getting, it bothers me, right? I'm not picking on you at any point. Like I said, I trust you. You tell me we got to do something, 9 times out of 10, I don't even argue with you. We just do it. And we've been like that for, this is my second term, best part of 7 years, that we haven't given you a hard time. This isn't giving you a hard time. I just can't see the value in what we're doing here.
Councilor Anderson, go ahead.
Through you, Mayor. So, Morgan, what we're probably looking for, if you come back to us with some numbers, is the split difference between the cost on the mandatory versus the phasing part of their suggestions of what we should fix. So if it's 100,000 and they want 50 on the first load and 50 on the second, there's a possibility that we would do our own master plan and hold on to the mandatory government portion. I don't know if that's amenable to the people that bid or not. And I'm going to loop back into my other questions about if you've seen any outstanding sort of differences in responses, et cetera. A number of responses, and I'm happy to suggest as a retired healthcare worker, a number of the responses that you go to, you'd like to never see them happen. And that's emergency, motor vehicle incidences, overdosing. So I'm trying to get figured out in my head, as my colleague has stated, we haven't built that much more in the sense of infrastructure, possible burn building, but we are seeing rises in motor vehicle and medical. But those are unknown and hypothetical. You don't know whether you're going to get 5 motor vehicles a year or 45. So we're looking at spending a portion of funding on an unknown or undeterminable activity, although we seem to have a year over year, there's kind of a rolling consistency. But the thing is I sort of agree with my two colleagues, like we're chasing some sort of hypothetical on what the plan should be. If your stats don't change, I don't see why you need to change your plan. Like, we could take the process and back into that, and what we're doing is obviously working because we have an excellent result in our fire department and service protection. So what are we doing wrong that we need to have somebody to come in and tell us what we're either not doing or not doing wrong? Is that making sense?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. Again, the intent of the plan isn't to identify what we're doing wrong. It's a data piece that council can then use for actual information instead of hypotheticals, as you said, on determining levels of service. It's the actual written documentation that council, defensible information that council can use to set the levels of service. And to speak about the 444 municipalities, there are municipalities in the north that, when we're talking about levels of service, without that community risk assessment, communities, and we were one of them in 2016, 2017, where the community thought we could provide a level of service that we couldn't. And without that information, without the province coming in and putting their thumb on us, and without the investments that the last couple of councils, including yourselves, have made, we're at a point now where we have addressed all those gaps that were identified. There is still more to go. This is that we've done 10 years. What does the next 10 to 15 look like? And I agree with Councillor McClellan. We have a wonderful working relationship, but this plan outlasts several terms. So that way, when the next council is running, those candidates can look ahead and see what risks and what issues are facing us in 10 to 15 years. That's what that plan does.
So if I might continue, so will this consultant be basically looking at the process through your stats. I mean, if I drive into Innisfil, the fire department, I don't know what they're doing. So I got to look at a base of data information, which you give us yearly in a big report. So is part of what they're going to be doing is taking your already done plan and just rescoping it, or like I'm trying hard to understand, as my colleagues are, what the costing efficiencies are on that money. Now the mandatory, I don't want to get in trouble with the mandatory stuff. Upper government, you know, stay away from them as far as we can. Plus, we don't want them to put in the gleep on our MPF. But like, I'm just wondering what the efficiencies are out of identifying gaps. That what are they going to know that we don't already know? Like, where are they sourcing their information from?
So specifically with the community risk assessment, there's 9 mandatory profiles that include demographics, economic, geographic, infrastructure, critical infrastructure. So those are all things, and that data is taken from the census, it's taken from our financial reports, it's taken from our own data that we've collected. Every year we have to provide the province with reporting on our incidents, our emergency responses, our fire prevention activities. So they gather all that data, and that's where they're getting the info. So a lot of the information we would have to provide them.
So if I might continue, Mayor, what are they paying you for that data?
Madam CEO?
Okay, so through the Mayor to all of Council, it seems like we're talking in circles a little bit here. So just to get things back on track, my recommendation would be not to bring this back just with information at the next staff report. We are at that point going to be a year delinquent already in the mandatory component. So initially they were kind of being nice to us because we were doing a shared service operation. So our resources were a little bit thin. So they had some patient, they gave us some leeway, let's say. I don't know how long that's going to last, and I don't want to take advantage of that. So at this point, we would be looking for staff direction, either if council wishes to send us back to rescope to just the community risk assessment, if you want us to rescope in a certain way to get quotes that potentially can come in lower for both components. What?
Councillor Van Fleet, go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Okay, I'm a little torn here. So we budgeted $125,000 for this because we knew it was going to happen, right? And we came in under budget, so that makes sense to me. And I'm not about to risk not getting grants from the government because we all know that they will just put a red flag on us and say, you guys suck, and not give us any money. I would rather go through with this. We knew it was going to happen, so this has nothing to do with the chief. It's just he brought us the numbers. So listen, we already budgeted for it. It already sucks. And does anybody know how much it cost last time around? Like, it was probably...
Chief, you say something?
Yeah, so I was just going to say that the master fire plan, the discussion surrounding the requirement for the CRM master fire plan, that was actually part of council's direction as one of the motions made during last year. I can't remember which council meeting it was, but that was actually a motion that was passed and staff were directed to proceed. So that's why it was budgeted for in 25. I'd have to find that and go back I'd have to find the motion for you, but we would actually have to go and reverse that motion to not do the master fire plan and CRA.
Yeah. Yep. You want to say? No? Okay.
Could we just call the
We
question?
can just call the question.
Call the
Yeah,
question.
it seems like there's no more discussion, so, yeah. Nobody's wishing to make a motion, obviously. We all agree that we don't like it, but we're kind of stuck in the middle right now. So I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay. Moving on to planning staff reports. PSR 3 2025, respecting the zoning amendment Z02 2025W, Triple G Farms. Ms. Ivins, could you please provide a brief overview of your report?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to all of council. This report provides a review of the applicable planning policies as it relates to a zoning bylaw amendment application for 32626 Clarendon Street West. The subject property received provisional approval from the Committee of Adjustment for a surplus farm dwelling severance. And this zoning application proposes to rezone Part 1 of the subject property, being the surplus farm dwelling parcel, to a site-specific agricultural A2-83 zone to permit a minimum lot area of 0.98 hectares, and to rezone Part 2, being the remnant farmland, to a site-specific agricultural A2-182 zone, which would prohibit dwellings and permit a minimum lot area of 32.9 hectares. Through consideration of the application, the Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority requested that the floodplain for the Millrace Creek be included in the zoning bylaw amendment. And as such, I've added a hazard overlay, and that's been incorporated into the final bylaw. So it's my opinion that the amendment meets the applicable provincial, regional, and township planning policies, and I've recommended that the amendment be adopted, and the implementing bylaws on this evening's agenda is bylaw number 17. I'm available for any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Evans. So I have a motion that planning staff report PSR 3/2025 be received, and that the zoning bylaw amendment file Z02/2025W for the lands known municipally as 32626 Clarendon Street West be approved for the reasons outlined in this report, and that the application be deemed to be consistent with the Provincial Planning Statement 2024 and conform with the Niagara Official Plan and the Township of Wainfleet Official Plan, and that the zoning bylaw amendment attached as Appendix C be adopted. Can I have a mover and seconder? Councillor Van Fleet, Councillor McCullen. Any discussion? Councillor McCullen, go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. One question to Ms. Ivins. I see we're just shy of a hectare. They're cutting this lot and putting it in. These are brand-new lines. Why can't we at least hit the 1 hectare that it asked for? Like, move a line by 3 feet and you'll make it, and we don't have to say, oh, it doesn't quite meet. Just, I don't know, it's just me, but if it's a hectare, it should be a hectare, right? And especially when you're putting new lines. You're not up against something that you couldn't do. There's lots of room there. Just for future.
I can respond to that. So through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor McClellan. So there were a couple of factors that made the lot size the way it is. They were trying to balance the amount of fill that would need to be brought in to bring the parcel that they're severing, so the existing house has to be located outside of the floodplain. So the first priority for the applicant was to minimize the amount of fill that they would need to bring in to change the floodplain. The second part was the barns that are going to be retained on the farmland. There's a minimum separation distances under the Ontario Building Code that they needed to meet.
Yeah.
And so those two factors dictated how the lot was designed. They did their best to reach that 1 hectare size, but due to those factors, it was just shy of a hectare. So we have no concerns from a septic perspective, and our official plan policies do prefer to see these lots smaller than a hectare, but this is, those two factors kind of led to it being just shy of the 1 hectare mark.
I understand all that. Just
He's venting.
for a couple of feet, we could have made this work. That's all.
All right, any other discussion?
Yeah, no.
None? All right, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? All right, that is carried. Okay, moving on to PSR 4/2025, respecting the final approval for draft plan of subdivision P2-202-1W. Ms. Ivins, can you please provide a brief overview of your report?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to all of council. So council draft approved the plan of subdivision for the subject lands on February 21st of 2023. And that subdivision proposes to create 15 lots for single detached dwellings, 2 blocks for a municipal drain and water course, 2 blocks for stormwater management, 1 block for water for firefighting supply, and 1 public road. That draft approval was subject to 43 conditions, and the applicant has been working to fulfill these conditions. I've reviewed the submission from the applicant, and I'm satisfied that those 43 conditions have been or will be fulfilled through the implementing subdivision agreement. So So a chart listing the 43 conditions imposed along with staff comments on how those conditions have been satisfied is attached as Appendix B to the report, as well as the draft subdivision agreement, which is Appendix C. I've also prepared a bylaw to add the name of the new public road, Hessel's Court, to the Schedule A of Bylaw 42 of 2010, which is a bylaw to adopt municipal and private road names. That amending bylaw is Appendix D in the report and is on this evening's agenda as bylaw number 18. Available for any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Evans. So I have a motion that Planning Staff Report PSR for 2025 be received and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to execute the draft subdivision agreement with 2709998 Ontario Inc. attached as Appendix C, subject to any minor revisions deemed necessary by staff, and that the bylaw attached as Appendix D be adopted by council to amend bylaw number 42, 2010, to add Hessel's Court to the consolidated list of street names, and that the staff be authorized to grant final approval upon execution of the subdivision agreement. Can I have a mover and seconder? Councillor Van Fleet, Councillor McCullen. Any discussion? Councillor McCullen, go ahead.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, just one question. Is there any chance that this will get built in the next 10 years? Because nothing we've approved since I've been on has ever been built.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor McClellan. I know the applicant is eager to get going, and certainly final approval is the next step. I just have to pull up the subdivision agreement because we did set aside a timeline for construction. And I'm just trying to find that here. Usually it's to get started within 5 years. And then once started, you have so many years to complete construction and final services. So we did take that into consideration through the subdivision agreement. It's just quite a lengthy document, so I don't have the timeline in front of me.
All right, any other discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Congratulations, gentlemen. All right, moving on to review of correspondence. We have one item of correspondence on the agenda for consideration this evening. Correspondence item C107, respecting the Meals on Wheels sponsorship request. Does any member of council wish to make a motion? We don't have to spend township money, I'll just do it. Yeah. All right. Okay, so I'll just make a motion to receive this as information. Can I get a seconder? Councillor Cullen, any discussion? Seeing none, call the question. All in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. Okay, moving into, what else do we got here? Excuse me. Oops, let me write it down. All right, moving into bylaws. We have several bylaws on the agenda for consideration this evening. I have a motion that the following bylaws be read and passed this 20th day of May 2025. Bylaw number 14, 2025, being a bylaw to appoint a municipal bylaw enforcement officer for the corporation of the Township of Wainfleet. Bylaw number 15, 2025, being a bylaw to appoint a deputy clerk for the corporation of the Township of Wainfleet. Bylaw number 16, 2025, being a bylaw to establish and regulate payment of various fees and charges within the Township of Wainfleet. And then bylaw number 17, 2025, being a bylaw pursuant to the provisions of Section 34 of the Planning Act RSO 1990 to amend zoning bylaw number 34, 2014 of the Corporation of the Township of Wainfleet with respect to those lands forming Concession 3, Part Lot 26 in the Township of Wainfleet and known municipally as 32626 Clarendon Street West. And then lastly, bylaw number 18, 2025, being a bylaw to amend bylaw 42, 2010, being a bylaw to adopt municipal and private road names in the Township of Wainfleet. Can I have a mover and seconder? Councillor McCullen, Councillor Gilmore. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call a question. All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay, are there any notices of motion this evening? Seeing none? Okay, we do have a closed session this evening, so I have a motion that council now move into closed session to discuss item under section 239-2C of the Municipal Act 2001, a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board. One item, a potential acquisition of land matter. And then secondly, the minutes of the closed meeting of council held March 18th, 2025. Can I have a mover and seconder? Councilor Gilmore, Councilor Van Fleet. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? All right, that is carried. We'll now move into closed.